Hey everyone, welcome back to the Alberta Roundup. I'm your host, Rachel Emanuel. Four NDP MLAs have announced that they are seeking the leadership for the Alberta NDP, along with a union leader and a very popular former mayor of Calgary. Today, we are joined by Cheryl Oates. She used to work for Alberta NDP leader and former premier Rachel Notley. She was the executive director of communication, and she's going to break this all down for us. Cheryl, thanks so much for joining the show today.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So when we look at the candidates, we've got, a bunch of candidates joining so far. We have until Friday if anyone new wants to join. What direction do you think the NDPers are looking to go in? Are they looking for someone more moderate, maybe someone like Nenshi, or are they looking for someone who's going to take their party a little further to the right?
Yeah, I think there's a divergence of opinions, just like any party. This is a coalition of people. And I think, like speaking for myself, I'm looking for a unicorn. I'm looking for someone who can uphold the values of the party and the history of the party and the things that the NDP has long fought for, and also have the ability to be competitive in 2027. We know that Danielle Smith is an expert communicator, and the next leader of the NDP will have to be just as good of a communicator to be able to stand up to her.
Right. When we look at the candidates, we've got a bunch of MLAs and NDPs. I mentioned we've got two former cabinet ministers. We've got Kathleen Gainley and Sarah Hoffman. They have a little more profile than some of the other Edmonton MLAs that we have, including Raki Panchali. She was just elected in 2019. We have another MLA who was just voted in 2023. Those MLAs that have the ministry behind them, are they someone with a little bit more profile? Do you think that will benefit them during the leadership race?
For sure. I mean, anytime that you're looking to win over existing members and continue to build the party, having those decades, in some cases, of experience where you've had the chance to build one-on-one relationships with people, build your profile, have a little bit of history of getting things done behind you, obviously that's really helpful in terms of having people hear your message, but also having a record to point to. And certainly the MLAs that have multi-terms as MLAs have tons of profile and a really big base of relationships to work from.
Let's talk about Naheed Nenshi for a moment. He announced that he was going to be seeking leadership earlier this week. I think a lot of people were sort of expecting him to jump in the race. He was obviously a very popular mayor of Calgary, and I think a lot of people are taking this announcement pretty seriously. And he actually already commented on Danielle Smith earlier this week. He took a stab at her government. Let's play that clip now.
$14,000 a bottle on Tylenol when the federal government had already ordered some just so you could own the libs. $100 million on the failed privatization of Dynalife, $9 million on advertising for the Alberta pension plan, something that in the election she said she would never do. And the list goes on and on and on and on. And, yesterday I had a very busy day, so I haven't had a chance yet to look at what they're suggesting they're going to fix in the utility system, but what they broke in the utility system has caused utility bills to quadruple in Alberta, to be by far the highest in Canada. Our insurance rates, our auto insurance rates, are something like 2.5 times what they are in Saskatchewan next door. This is direct results of UCP government policy. Setting aside the crisis in family doctors, the closure of emergency rooms, the fact that here in one of the wealthiest jurisdictions in the world, you can't be guaranteed that you'll get an ambulance when you call 911 when you're in need. This is sheer incompetence combined with the lack of any moral fiber. And, I will call them on that every single day.
So I thought it was really interesting that Nenshi is already attacking Danielle Smith. Do you think he's seeking to sort of place himself as her opponent and by that, gain some profile for himself? I'm not running against the other candidates in this race. I'm actually running against the current premier.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, because truly any party, whether it's the NDP or the Conservatives, want to believe that they're setting themselves up for success and they're choosing the best leader who can be competitive in the next election and hopefully form government. So I think Nenshi's tactic here is, one, to let people see that he has the ability to sort of go toe-to-toe with Danielle Smith in terms of communication, but also to position himself to say, I can take her on, I can win, and I'm the candidate positioned to do that. And I mean, the NDP historically, leadership races have been pretty friendly. So I think it makes sense for him to take his aim outside the party rather than at the other candidates.
Out of all the candidates currently in the race, who do you think would have the best chance of beating Danielle Smith?
Honestly, this is an awesome slate of people, and any of them would make a really great leader. I think I'm waiting to sort of see how their positioning comes out, what they think of themselves in terms of what they see for the party going forward, and how they're going to listen to the membership. And the person who will do the best is a person, like I said, who can be a concise, compelling communicator, because we know that's what Danielle Smith is, and someone who can uphold the values of the party and bring Alberta along with them. We need the party to continue to grow if we want to be competitive. The NDP has seen incredible success growing over the last decade. And if we want to win in 2027, we need to continue to grow. We need to win more seats in Calgary and more seats outside of both the major cities. And whoever positions themselves to best do those things is the person who's going to be successful.
Rocky Pancelli said that she would abolish the carbon tax if she was elected the leader. What do you think of that? Is she maybe seeking to attract people who wouldn't have traditionally voted for the NDP, or is this a policy that's actually quite popular within the party's base?
I think, having served in government at the time that the carbon tax was brought in, I still believe this was the most effective and efficient policy to curb emissions. Now we have seen it is absolutely not the most popular policy, and it doesn't have durability. This is politically poison now. And I think it makes sense for candidates to start talking about is there a better approach? How do we combat climate change in a way that we can bring Albertans along with us, something that people can buy into? And the carbon tax just isn't politically popular in Alberta, and it's not politically palatable. So I think she's one of many candidates saying, is there a better solution here?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting to hear you say that you thought it was a good policy, but it's obviously not very politically popular anymore. Do you think that it's always been that way, or has something changed to make it just such a detrimental policy to any party that tries to put it forward?
Yeah, certainly at a time of peak unaffordability, it's hard to swallow an additional tax. Even if people are getting a rebate that is beyond what they're paying for the tax, it's hard at the time to swallow the fact that we're paying more. So I think at the time, the NDP looked at this. We got the advice from experts, we got the advice from outside academics to say, what is the best way to curb emissions in our province? And this is the advice that we got. But since then, the policy has been weaponized. It has been brought into public discourse in the realm of affordability, and it's just not durable. It's not a policy that's going to last beyond multiple changes in government. So I think it's time for us to look at what could actually work and what could stay in place for multiple changes of government to come.
As I mentioned before, candidates have until Friday for anyone else hoping to join the race. I'm wondering if you think there's anyone else that might jump in. I know there's been some speculation online that former cabinet minister Thomas Lukaszuk might join in the race. What do you think?
I think it's probably set. Like, I could be surprised and see someone, jump out of the woodwork in the last couple of days here. But I think most of these people who have announced that they are in the race have been thinking about it for a long time and have been doing some work behind the scenes. And once they were approved, doing, a lot of work on the ground to sell memberships and raise money. And I think it would be hard for anyone joining the race at this point.
Sure. Just my last question for you here. If you think this is everyone who's going to be in the race, any predictions for who might win it?
I do not have any predictions for who might win it. I think that we are going to see a lot more debate and ideas and platforms from candidates in the coming weeks. And I think that NDP members, a lot of them are still open and still thinking about who's best to lead the party. And as we see those ideas and demonstrations held up in contrast, I think a lot more people are going to start making up their minds.
Cheryl, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everyone, that's all we have time for today. As always, I will be back on Saturday with my regular programming. You guys will not want to miss this week's episode. We've had some crazy news in Alberta this week, something to do with the Prime Minister being here, and guess who wasn't allowed into his press conference. I'll be back with that on Saturday. Have a great week and God bless.